Welcome to Stacklebeck Tonight. I'm Eric Stacklebeck, and what happens in the Middle East does not stay in the Middle East. Why does that matter to you? Well, the world's most chaotic and strategic region is on the brink of a major war that will profoundly affect all of us and which could have prophetic implications. Here is the state of play right now. The Iranian regime is vowing revenge against Israel following last week's elimination of top Iranian General Mohammad Reza Zahedi. Now, Zahedi was a leading figure in Iran's elite Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps and headed up Iran's terror operations in Syria and Lebanon. Folks, in many ways, he was the key point man in Iran and Hezbollah's jihad against Israel. That is, until he and 6 other top officials from the Revolutionary Guards were killed last week in an airstrike on the Iranian consulate in Damascus. It was a heavy blow to the Iranian regime, and Iran's supreme leader says it won't go unanswered.
لعنت خدا بر رژیم غاصب صهیونی است. دستگاه‌های سفارت در هر کشوری که وجود دارد به منزله خاک همان کشوری است که سفارت متعلق به اوست. وقتی به کنسولگری ما حمله میکنن مثل اینکه به خاک ما حمله کردن. این عرف دنیاست.
Now, as you might imagine, the region is on pins and needles right now, awaiting that Iranian response. Will it be direct strikes on Israel from Iran, or will Iran act through its proxies like Hezbollah or through militias in Syria and Iraq? Will Iran strike at Israeli embassies or Jewish targets overseas? It seems pretty clear that Iran feels it has to do something in order to save face, and U.S. officials say it's a matter of when, not if, Iran acts. But obviously, folks, Israel isn't going to just take this lying down. Israel's foreign minister said yesterday, quote, if Iran attacks from its territory, Israel will respond and attack in Iran. So where does the United States stand in all of this? We'll break that down a bit later in the show, and you'll want to hear it. But up first, are Israel and Iran on the brink of an all-out war? And how are Israelis responding? And what's the latest in Gaza? Will Hamas live to fight another day? Joining us now from Jerusalem is our TBN Israel correspondent, Yair Pinto. Yair, great to have you with us as always. You're in Jerusalem. What is the feeling on the ground right now in Israel? It seems like the world is holding its breath, awaiting this Iranian strike. What are Israelis saying?
Hey, Eric. It's great to be here on the show. And it might feel relaxed and calm this evening here in Jerusalem, but that's not really what's happening. The whole country is on standby and on high alert for an Iranian response to the assassination of their leader in Damascus. Okay, so Iran and Israel have been at war for a very long time. And so far, Iran has been using its proxies in order to conduct its dirty work, meaning Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, and other Iranian proxies, or in Iraq and other places. But Israel is on standby. And Eric, since the beginning of this war on the 7th of October, Israel has been preparing for an Iranian response and for a Hezbollah response. So the IDF is spread out and has been training for this response by Iran and for any escalation on the northern border or on the border with the Houthis in the heart of Israel. The IDF is ready. Personally, when this war started, I was called for 2 months of training on the border with Hezbollah. So the IDF is ready, the government is on standby, and in an international note, Israel and the United States are united 100% in our defense and the importance of Israel to remain in this Middle East, to remain strong, and the U.S., our greatest ally, will be with us in any case of an attack against Iran.
That's the prayer. We'll talk about that a bit later in the show, Yair. And you make a great point. The IDF has really been preparing for this for years. I've been on live fire drills with the IDF on the Lebanon and Syria border going back years, so they are ready. In the meantime, Gaza, Yair, a lot of people are asking, big development over the weekend, some Israeli forces pulling out of Gaza, and people are asking, does that mean the operation there is over? Will Israel go into Rafah and finish off Hamas? What are you hearing about that?
Well, that's a great question, Eric, and everybody's been asking me that also. Yesterday, my team and I went to the border between Israel and the Gaza Strip to really see what's going on the ground. Okay, so the IDF has pulled off a lot of the troops out of the area of Khan Yunis. And this is not a withdrawal from the Gaza Strip. It's important to say that. The IDF is not withdrawing its forces from the Gaza Strip. This is what Hamas wants the world to think. The IDF is taking the forces out of the Gaza Strip in order to regroup and prepare for the attack against Rafah. Rafah is the last stronghold of Hamas in the Gaza Strip, and the IDF needs to prepare for this operation. The second reason is that in the beginning of this war, the IDF was fighting a terrorist army. After achieving the IDF's goals of dismantling this army, Hamas is back to being a guerrilla terrorist organization. And there's a different strategic way of fighting a guerrilla organization, and it's different than fighting an army. You don't need as much troops on the ground. The IDF has moved into strategical, tactical operations that target the remaining terror cells in the Gaza Strip. And for that reason, a lot of the IDF forces are back in Israel, preparing, planning for the offensive against the last bastion of the terrorist organization Hamas in Rafah.
Yeah, Yair,
Let me tell you a little bit more about Rafah. Okay, let me tell you a little bit more about Rafah. Rafah is a really complicated place. All of the leadership of Hamas that still remain evacuated together with the civilian population from the northern part of the Gaza Strip and are hiding in Rafah, together with 1.3 million Palestinian civilians. Okay, and as we learned, Hamas is using the civilians as human shields, as well as the Israeli hostages that are somewhere being kept in Rafah. The world is making this operation very hard to conduct by Israel because they fear about the civilian population. They don't want to have a crisis with the civilian population, either escaping into Egypt or being without any food and supply. So this is what Israel is dealing with at the moment, and there is no dilemma about conducting an operation in Rafah against Hamas. The dilemma is, how do we conduct it with the minimum amount of harm to the civilian population?
Yeah, and Yair, great insights, my friend. We will have you back very soon to break this down more, that coming offensive in Rafah. Yair Pinto, our TBN Israel correspondent from Jerusalem. Thanks so much, my friend.